Above the Law, a trauma-informed, appreciative approach to examining mayoral control of New York City public schools. In this video, I'm going to continue Cycle 1, Stage 1 of the Appreciative Informed Resonant Transformation by concluding my traumatic narrative as it relates to the governance goal engagement, personal management, part 3. Engagement based on mobbing, Stage 3, personnel management continued. And then there was Mr. Impulse. Mr. Impulse would schedule Zoom meetings and call me on my phone, sometimes multiple times a day, despite the policy that no one was supposed to speak with him directly. Additionally, like Dr. Worse, he tended to provide incorrect information that contradicted policy. And this was no mistake because, like the supervisory regime, these were policies that he was responsible for implementing on behalf of this organization, New York City Public Schools, and the New York State Education Department. The sabotage was blatant, and his constant need to contact me made me question Dr. Worse. When I asked Dr. Worse about her friend's persistence to talk to me despite the policy, she expressed that he was a money-hungry consultant who only overstepped his boundaries so he could add extra work to his hourly rate, and someone who was known for harassing Black female employees. Every time I questioned Dr. Worse about any of the anti-research and policy-based practices of her colleagues and other stakeholders in the organization, she would consistently blame race as a factor. However, my intuition did not tell me that race was the issue. I believed my mobbing occurred because I was a new employee, and the supervisory regime attributed conspiratorial power to attack their enemy. Between Dr. Worse's obsession with race, Mr. Impulse's obsession with harassing Zoom meetings and phone calls, and the tag team champion's obsession with monitoring and snooping, I knew foul play was amiss. It was as if she was pumping me full of anger. He was always trying to shame me and get me to misinterpret or violate the organization's policies, and the duo wanted me afraid and worrying on a daily basis. The intensity of the mobbing sent me on a search to identify the meaning behind this psychological warfare. So, what did I gather from my search? First, I confirmed Ms. Evil's retirement from New York City Public Schools, where she served in several pedagogical and administrative roles. So I assume her attachment to the supervisory regime remained based on loyalty and professional attachment to the system and administrators union. I could find no real connection between Miss Minnie and New York City Public Schools besides her loyalty to Miss Evil. That evidence was circumstantial at best, so I kept digging. I then learned that Dr. Worse and Mr. Impulse collaborated with the district leaders who oversaw the school where the ghost position occurred during the time period of my debates with the supervisory regime. Seeing Dr. Worse happy and smiling with Mr. Impulse was interesting, especially when she said they were never on good terms. Okay, cool. I was getting warmer. Then I learned that Mr. Impulse was an ex and current colleague who worked with all of the supervisory regime members for decades. He was an immediate colleague of the hiring manager or principal. He was currently working as a consultant for and with supervisory support and the CSA, the Administrators Union. And he was a member of professional organizations with the grievance director, Dale Kelly, for decades. To add fuel to the fire, Mr. Impulse had a public record of accusations of retaliation. Bingo! I was working for the best buddies of the supervisory regime. As additional evidence, remember the Black colleagues Dr. Worse suggested I contact, but I never did? They too were close colleagues of the supervisory regime and members of the same professional organization. In the work encounters before this situation, I always suspected the architects of hate of having a role in my misfortune. However, between the conversations with Dr. Worst and the evidence I gathered about her and her colleagues, I realized that the supervisory regime retaliated against me in this position was likely the cause of my misfortune in previous settings and would likely never stop retaliating against me, especially not with a background check that bred mistrust. I realized that my defense mechanisms for counteracting each organization's sabotage would need to remain as sophisticated and strategic as their mobbing plans. So while the supervisory regime continued to solicit others to gather evidence of me as a combative and bitter ex employee, I continued to gather evidence based on the notion of birds of a feather flock together. Data collection always led to themes that mimicked my experiences with the supervisory regime. I ended up on a continuous cycle of expelling myself from all organizations due to hopelessness, as sabotage and retaliation against me seemed more important than student achievement. I earned my doctorate to learn how to solve problems, not watch leaders like the supervisory regime and their band of merry men make decisions that create more problems than they solve. As stated in the NYSED report, governance systems that produce uncertainty, distrust, and ambiguous accountability can impede districts' progress on any front. Up next, we will continue with Cycle 1, Stage 1 of the Appreciative Informed Resonant Transformation by disclosing my traumatic narrative as it relates to the governance goal engagement by discussing the final stage of the mobbing process expulsion. See you there.